Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we're about to get started with round 29 of the Dispatchers Roundtable. But first, as always, a word from our sponsors.
At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Here in Greenville County, we have 8 different places where a 911 call can be answered.
It is the largest county in South Carolina. It's a challenge.
The type of information that a telecommunicator gets from Radius Plus is location-based technology. You can see where the caller is, if they have a medical issue, if they speak a different language. They're immediately able to text to that caller in their native language. It reduces response times because it immediately gets first responders where they need to be.
Carbine, it's multimedia. You can get text, translate to whatever language, getting away with the legacy equipment and going into a cloud-based solution.
It's the first time in U.S. history that we have an EZNet through cloud-native call handling.
As a police officer, to have the victim go video, that's unheard of.
You're getting upgrades every month, not every year.
To schedule your free Carbine demo, please visit carbine.com/WTT.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned. Oh yeah, welcome everyone. We are back with the Dispatchers Roundtable. This is going to be round 29, and for everyone who is jumping in here, thank you so very much for joining us. And make sure to put in the comments roll call. Where are you watching from? How are you doing? How's everything going? It is Wednesday, May 25th, just after 2 p.m. Eastern time, and I love doing the Dispatchers Roundtable because we're able to get on here and talk about some different topics that are going on in public safety. And this is one actually that I've kind of touched on a few different rounds. I believe I even did a portion of it in a live broadcast last summer at one of the national conferences, and we are going to expand on this here. And so we've got Doug jumping in here, we've got Roxy in rainy Kansas. Man, I'm here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and it's been raining pretty much the entire day as well. So it's been interesting. It's gray and gloomy outside, but we are still gonna have some fun going through all of this here. So this is good. We've got a bunch of people jumping in, and a lot from LinkedIn. This is excellent. And so if you have any questions, any comments, please make sure to throw them in the comments section, because we're going to go through those as well. Again, we are going to be talking today about video to 911, pros, cons, everything. We're going to be talking about this concept, and there's a lot of places that are using this already, right? But there's a concept that I want to start with here in just a moment that maybe will jog your memories a little bit as we're getting into this. So Doug is jumping in, Kenton County, Kentucky. Jeremy, what is going on, my friend? And Karen out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, what is going on? Keely, hello, Keely. Keely, we are going to have to touch base again on the other round that we wanted to do. So make sure to look out for that one. That one's going to be coming up. We're going to get that one going as well, because there's a few other rounds that I want to be talking about that have to do with dispatch as well. But We're going to jump right in. Actually, before I get started here, this live broadcast is sponsored by InDigital Rapid Deploy as well as Carbine, and this is an exclusive Carbine DRT episode. Also, a big thanks to patrons as always, and a perk for patrons only are audio versions of the DRT as well as Open Mic Live. So make sure to check those out. And Singing Badly in My Car, all kinds of bonus content coming up with that. So make sure to check that out. I am going to bring on my guest right now so that we can get started with this conversation. Again, please make sure any comments, questions, anything, stories, throw them in the comments, and we'll go over those as well. So my guest today is Evan McIntyre, and he's a regional manager for the Southeast, and he is working with Carbine. Hey.
Hey, Ricardo, pleasure to meet you. How's it going?
Yeah, man, you as well. It is going good. I'm glad to have you on here, and I love these platforms because you're allowed to actually kind of blur out the background a little bit. I never do it. I think only because a lot of times people ask about my print press in the back, and people are always like, "What's that spaceship you got going on back there?" I'm like, "It's not a spaceship."
It does look a little bit like a robot.
Yeah,
sure.
right. Yeah. It looks like something like it's there doing the robot and everything. But
My room is definitely more boring.
yeah, I've got stuff all over the place. I've got a box right there with new hats and everything that just came in. I gotta clean some of this stuff up. Sheesh. But thank you so much for joining me for this round 29 of the Dispatchers Roundtable. And now that we have you on here, we're gonna hit the intro music. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to the Dispatchers Roundtable. Yeah, all right. Welcome everyone. Once again, the Dispatchers Roundtable. And Evan, please, for those who are watching right now, tuning in, whether they're watching live or they're going to end up watching on the replay, a little introduction of you. What is your public safety background and all?
Yeah, so appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone. So started in 2016. I started with an EMT class in Wake Tech in North Carolina, and the goal was to go to the fire department and EMS and start volunteering, which I did and completed, and was brought on with Cary Area EMS in Cary, North Carolina. That agency was eventually rolled into Wake County EMS, where I was at until December, and then I switched over to Johnston County EMS in North Carolina, and I'm still active, working kind of the swing shift in the off hours and weekends as well. So spend most of my time on a 911 ambulance. I also work for Axon, which is the body camera and taser company that you associate a lot of times with law enforcement, and then studied them in college and provided use cases for getting body cameras on law enforcement officers, and also looked at research on using tasers as a de-escalation tool that gave an intermediate use of force tool in between OC pepper spray, batons, and firearms.
Nice. Man, you got a lot going on there. That is excellent. Now, I do have to ask, as you mentioned tasers and everything else, case studies and all this other stuff, did you have the opportunity to get tased yourself?
I've unfortunately been tased with everything that Taser sells. So the X26P, the X2, and the Taser 7. So it's not fun.
I was just going to ask.
An experience. But if you've never been tased, it's kind of like the worst muscle cramp you ever had in your entire life, throughout your entire body, with the sensation of being burned alive, but only for 5 seconds. Man. So as soon as electricity stops, you immediately bounce right back to normal.
Holy moly. Yeah, no, I've only, it's like back when I was in dispatch, I remember seeing videos of those going to get their certification and everything, getting tased and such, and hearing some funny stories about it. And I was asked a couple times, like, do you want us to come out and do that to you? You know, just so that you know what it feels like. I was like, hell no.
Yep. It's not pleasant. It's definitely a rush though. And it's really interesting just to kind of see how it works and just have an overall idea of the sensation and how it's used in the field to completely stop what you're doing, ride the lightning, and then that you have complete loss of control over your body. And then you just flop to the floor. And then as soon as electricity stops, you just return to normal.
Oh man, yeah. Jeremy here said the same thing that you said.
Oh,
Ride the lightning. Yeah,
oh yeah, that's
that's
that's what
funny.
we call it.
Yeah,
It's no joke, but it's an amazing tool.
yeah. And other than some of the pictures and like video and such that I saw from officers that I worked with, we've probably all seen videos on YouTube or something like that where people are so strong-willed, right, and they're ready to take you on and stuff, and then they're getting all these warnings. They're like, you need to stop, you need to stop. And they start moving. And it's always so interesting to see, like, right when they pull that trigger and you hear, the voltage going through and the person just, it's almost like, those, the goats that are, kind of bouncing around and you yell and they just stiffen and fall over.
Yep.
That's what people look like sometimes, right?
Yep. And so at Axon, we had this thing called Ride the Bull where they would
Mhm.
tase you and then they would hit you a second time with the second set of probes. And then you would have the electricity bouncing between all 4 points of the cables. Or they could always take the taser and drive stun it right into the back of your calf. So
What?
that's another option for them to do. I never did that, but
Oh,
wouldn't recommend it.
wow. Oh man, yeah, that sounds gnarly as well. As Akili here says, there's likely a reason they don't allow dispatchers to have them. And Jeremy says, unless you're on meth, just saying.
Yep. Same with EMS. That's why we can't have nice things.
Oh man, that is craziness. Well, again, thank you so much for being on here, and we're going to get into an interesting topic here. Again, there are some places out there, and companies that are using video to 911 and all, but I want to start out going back in time. So I'm going to change my setting here. You might hear. And this is not only for you, but everyone who is watching right now. I'm turning off a setting really quick so I can allow some audio to go through the interface. So you might hear an echo for like a split second or two, but it won't stay. Um, and then I'm going to play this video here. So, and I'm also going to put this question out there to the audience, and this is about Google Glass. So I'm going to play the video first, and then we'll kind of discuss this because this video comes from April of 2012. That's right, 2012. I was in dispatch still. It was about a year and a half before I left dispatch. And I remember this idea of Google Glass coming out and then seeing this concept video, which I think it's just 2.5 minutes. And like I said, we'll discuss this here in a moment. I want to play this really quick.
Yeah. Meet me in front of Strand Books at 2. Oh man, really? Hey there, guy. Hey there, little guy. Sweet. Remind me to buy tickets for Monsieur Gano tonight. Where's the music section? Oh, yes, this is it. Is Paul here yet? Huh. Hey, dude, how's it going?
Want to go check out that new place I was telling you about?
Sure.
This truck's really good.
Hey, just a second. Cool.
Good to see you again.
Thanks, man.
Just got a new place in Alphabet City.
See you, dude. Oh, cool. Take a photo of this. Share it to my circles. Oh, I'm running late. Music, stop.
Hi, what's up?
Hey.
Hey,
You want to say something cool?
Yeah, sure. Is that a ukulele?
Yep. Okay, here goes.
That's beautiful.
Okay, so again, that was from April 2012, and I remember being in dispatch and seeing this for the first time. I don't remember what it was that I was on. I think because Google during that time still had their social media network, Google Plus, and I was part of like their beta testing and everything. So they had sent out this video through their Google Plus, and I got an inbox message with this, and I was watching it. And I thought, what? WTF, what is this? And there was another video out there where they actually showed this Google Glass concept and everything, but it was for a medical call and it was to 911. And you were able to see it was what the caller was seeing, and their grandmother was like on the floor in the kitchen, and she was trying to get up and she was holding her chest and stuff. And I remember we all thought, what the hell? Like, is this going to be something that's being used for like video to 911? And again, this is 2012 when this had come out, and we were at that time kind of freaking out, like, what if this is actually what it is? Like, what the heck? So for you, Evan, like, what are your thoughts just looking at that video again, thinking about this being 2012, and just the concept of everything that they were doing and kind of fitting that to 911?
No, I think it's an amazing concept, and I'm glad that finally there's we've been able to bring some of that technology to market specifically for 911. And because the hardest part for 911 has been trying to locate people and then understand truly what's going on, because as many of us know, people can be sometimes poor historians or or they don't explain what's going on very well, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. So it helps dispatchers truly be the first responders, the first set of eyes and ears on a scene when you get a call for service.
So with where you work and everything, just kind of a high level overview of your thought process on video to 911 and how this works in public safety. I mean, like I said, it's something that you guys have been doing for a little while now, and other places, or not other places, but other companies as well, are bringing this to the forefront. And we're getting into all of this now, where there've been so many different apps, right, that have had something similar, and now, of course, in 911, we're finally catching up with everything. And so, what are your thoughts on this? Like, what is the concept of video to 911 as it pertains to the company that you work for?
So the concept for video to 911 is ultimately to make dispatchers and call takers the first responders on the scene, in the sense that we have the first set of eyes and ears on scene that is able to gather more information, have a better understanding of exactly what's going on, and then be able to locate those folks. And I guess for the folks that aren't familiar with what the general workflow is, if you were to receive a 911 call or a non-emergency call and that person needed to be located, or you wanted to see the video, you could send them a text message. They could click on the text message and it would open up a URL link that allows you to see video and share your video with the dispatcher, as well as a silent chat. And then you're able to then pull device-based location. And that is both for non-emergency numbers or 10-digit numbers, as well as 911. So it opens up a lot more information that's able to be ingested, and then you can make better decisions based on that.
Excellent. That is good. So I'm going to be looking back into the comments and everything here as we're going through this as well. And so there's one here saying, so like Jeremy says, if they'd figured out a way to implant this capability on a contact lens or biometrically implant the tech, I believe they would have seen more success with this. Who wants to wear that apparatus? Yeah, and it was kind of weird. It was just like kind of wired, and it was only on one side, if I remember correctly, for Google Glass. But it sounds like, or at least when I went to the website again, they have a Google Glass. It's like Glass X. that they're coming out with, and I think Apple is coming out with one as well. So there are a few different ones that are going to be coming out, but to be able to put that in a public safety setting, like that'll be pretty interesting. And going back to the contact lens, Jeremy, I think somewhere in Europe, I remember seeing that there was actually a contact lens that allowed you to be able to see, almost like if you remember the Terminator movies, the way he sees everything and everything's being pinpointed and stuff like that. There was a contact lens a few years ago that they were testing with, but who knows whatever happened with that. But let's see. Keely here says, like my caller last Friday. Okay, ma'am, what do you see around you? Trees. Super. But that is, like you were saying, that is another way that people would be able to get more information and get it faster by, instead of saying, what are the landmarks around you, because also not a lot of people know what you're saying when you're saying landmarks, and then you have to describe. So you're taking these little seconds, right, to ask all of these questions, where if you've got that video going, you can actually see everything that they are seeing as well.
Exactly. And I think another thing to note is if you were looking at the Google Glass, you have to remember or purchase the Google Glass. And what we've tried to do is make it easy in the sense that there's no applications to download. There isn't anything that you need to add or do differently other than just have a cell phone that can take text messages. And then, because at the end of the day, no one really wakes up in the morning thinking they're going to call 911, or at least that's what I would hope. And whenever that time comes and you need those services, then it's ready and it's easy for people to use.
So I'm going to put out there to the audience, and I want to ask you as well here, and we kind of covered just a little bit here right off the bat, but so what are some, for the audience and for you, Evan, what are some pros and cons of video to 911?
So at least we could start with the pros is one, getting a better understanding of what's going on in the scene and then understanding where they're at. Because a lot of agencies will have rapid SOS, or they'll have an any alley data point where you're able to get a flash of this is a general area that they might be in, but we can make it a bit more specific with device-based location. So the pro is being able to get that information on 911 and non-emergency calls. The second piece is going to be, of course, the video piece, and then be able to make better decisions based off that. Some of the cons might be that, at least that we've heard from some of our customers, it might slow things down a bit. Or we're trying to also think about the mental health of call takers and being exposed to different trauma, different thing that comes in. And trying to be more mindful and judicious about what people are exposed to over a period of time. But one thing we can also say is, for the call taker, it also gives you a bit more closure because you see more and you understand how the call concludes. And then you are able to make more decisions that impacts the first responders and the other folks on scene.
See, that is, I definitely agree with that. A few years ago, when I think it was for the 50-year anniversary of 911. The IAD was looking out to different people to write some articles about the future of 911 and what it'll look like, 50 years from now or from that time. And I had written an article for them that it was called "What It Once Was." And it was basically written in the concept of like a diary entry of a seasoned dispatcher from that time to someone else, almost like a time capsule type thing, talking about how things were automated and there was AI and how we lost the human factor of it. But what we ended up finding out was that being able to see certain things allowed us to have that closure and ended up being a lot better for us. So I'm glad to hear that a lot of people are thinking the same, something similar now, going into this, because I mean there's so much that'll go into just all of this here as we're talking about mental health and wellness and such. But I'm glad that people are talking about it a lot more than before. And so there's some comments here that are in my notes that I got from social media that I want to read as well, and I'll get to those here in just a moment. But I want to look back here into the comments. We've got one here saying, "I feel like this will be most beneficial for fire. They can see the incident and upgrade in advance of being on the scene." And they will know where to come in, the building structure and everything. She also mentions a con here, the guy who doesn't want to be alone in his final moments, and that's definitely one of those things, that we'll have to prepare these dispatchers and call takers to be able to deal with even more, because now, they'll be right there.
Yep, absolutely. At least from the fire perspective, like I would like to know, is this a grease fire? Is it contained to a microwave or a stovetop, or is this something that's truly a working structure fire? So that it could definitely be helpful. And then from at least from the times I've been injured on duty is a lot of times dealing with folks in a distressed mental state, and they can be both dangerous to themselves and others, as well as first responders. So having the situational awareness of knowing, are they armed, are they around weapons, could have helped me out on a scene a couple years ago where I was injured, and it's very important to be protective of our first responders, or to allow law enforcement to be at least aware that they're around weapons, so that we can better prepare for the scene that we're about to walk into.
I think this also, would help as well. When we're thinking about, even with like translations and stuff. You when you're on the phone with someone who doesn't speak English, and you're trying to get a translator on there, at least during that time when you're trying to pull in someone for translating, you can see what is going on. So like you're saying, if it has to do with like weapons and such, and you don't know those little words or whatever before the translator comes on, or the interpreter rather, you would be able to see at least enough to say, I don't see any weapons at the moment, or I do see, we've got a translator that's coming on. But that would definitely be something also that would be a pro there.
Yeah, most certainly. And then you would have at least the location, and
Mhm.
then you would be able to see the X, Y, and Z axis. So especially if it's a third floor apartment, or they're in an area that's not easily addressable, that
Mhm.
gives you a lot of flexibility in understanding what's coming in. And then, another thing that we've been discussing lately is starting up a pilot for stroke screens through video to 911. So what we've seen and understood is a lot of stroke calls come in by way of a third party caller, or someone that's home with another individual that's having a stroke. And then from my EMS background, we definitely understand that time is tissue, and then be able to quickly identify that this person is having a CVA, or cerebrovascular accident, that we can then address that call for service and then get them to the correct destination, or hospital for definitive care. So a couple things that we've been working with some of our partner agencies is implementing the Cincinnati Stroke Scale. And what that is three very simple questions: is give me a big smile. So look for one-sided facial droop. The second part is going to be one-sided weakness, where you ask them to put their palms in the air and hold it up and then keep it there. And if they have one-sided weakness, then that would be a fail on that part. And then to repeat a sentence, which could be something simple like, "It's always sunny in Philadelphia," or "You cannot teach an old dog new tricks." And then that would allow us to figure out that this person there's a strong likelihood that they're stroke positive, and that we need to slow down the assessment and go ahead and speed up the transport. So we can then move to the other things that we need to do in transit, as opposed to trying to make a scene or hospital decision at home while going through the stroke screen, because you've already done it. Right. So there's a couple things that we would need to do from the EMS perspective. Is one, start with the Cincinnati Stroke Scale. And then what we have to do in our particular system is get a blood sugar, and then also do a 12 lead ECG, where we're able to rule out other cardiac arrhythmias that might be causing that. But both of those things can be easily done en route, and then we can cut down perhaps 5 to 7 minutes of assessment time at home, and then just focus on rapid transport to a stroke center.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just listening to you talk about this and stuff. I'm thinking back to some of the medicals that I took, and that that part of it. There would be some times I'd be talking to somebody and I would be going through those, and I would say, I need you to have them smile. Is there any drooping on the left side or anything? And they're like, oh, I really can't tell. And then you have them, repeat the early bird catches the worm, and then of course, the weakness, like everything that you're saying. But sometimes, those who are on there, they're so, when people calling in on 911, especially with something like that that's going on with a loved one or even a friend or whatever, everything is heightened. The adrenaline is going. So they're kind of second guessing themselves, all at the same time. But if you're able to see this yourself and go off of what's going on there, that definitely cuts down on the time. And like you said, you can up that response and make it a lot faster.
Right. The other thing to think about is a lot of times when you are calling 911 for a loved one that you suspect is having a stroke, you're pretty stressed out. So being able to make those objective assessments would be helpful, so that you could then relay that this person is likely stroke positive. And then the other piece of it is you could then help us start finding the last known well, because it's very important to know when these symptoms started. So that we know, are they still in the window for certain treatments? And that can also define which hospital they're taken to. So meaning that if they're within 4 hours, they can go anywhere. If they're after this certain amount of time, it limits things. And then the way to think about it is time is tissue. And then you're able to then take that better assessment and that better information. And then we know exactly where we're going to go. As soon as we get this patient, we just have to check off the blood sugar and the ECG, and then off we go to rapidly transporting to the stroke center. I guess the other thing is also being a better witness and a better understanding of, is someone truly in cardiac arrest, being able to look for a chest rise and fall. And if you're looking at hands-only CPR from a third-party caller, are they doing good compressions? Are they doing it at the right rate? Because the faster and the sooner that we can get CPR on someone that's truly in cardiac arrest, vastly improves the likelihood of a positive outcome, and then having them leave the hospital neurologically intact. And in the U.S., we can range between 7 and 11% of those that are in cardiac arrest being transported and actually leaving neurologically intact. And I think we can get that number even higher, especially if bystanders provide better CPR.
Man, I've heard you say this a couple times already now, but time is tissue. I don't think I've heard that before until you said that, and I thought that is so true. Like that, and maybe that's something that's been around for a little while, but I'm pretty sure that's the first time I've heard that. But that is excellent, and really adds to how precious time is for
Right.
all of it.
And for those that have heard of a stroke or don't really know the at least the etiology and how all that's structured, it's either going to be a clot in the brain or it's going to be a brain bleed. So it doesn't present differently between a clot and a brain bleed, but our transport and the way we deal with things in EMS is really different. But either way, when there's a brain bleed or a clot, what that does is effectively stops blood from flowing to the tissue. And then that part of your brain starts to die. Same thing with your heart. So if you do have a clot in your heart, then everything below that is going to then lose its ability to get oxygen from the blood and then start to die. And then when the brain starts to die, we have a clear understanding of this part of the brain stopped working. So we know the clot is here. And then we know exactly how to start putting the right resources together in the hospital to either have an intervention or to mitigate that issue.
Mm-hmm. So I want to jump back into the comments here. There are a lot of them actually, and so I've got the ones that are in my notes, and I'm going to get to those here in a moment. But there's so much in here that I want to kind of unpack. So let's go. I'm going to scroll back up here. So this one is from Jeremy, and so some of the pros that he mentions are increased situational awareness, visual-based evidence recording, access to embedded video sources from private residences, permission-based in parentheses, and then telematics from vehicles. And Roxy says here, I think it needs to have some guidelines. I think having it be mandatory all the time is a little much. And let's see, Keely here says, I'm with you on this. I'm currently writing policy on it because we are about to go live with it. Oh, snaps. Okay. So there's a lot already, a lot of people that are already going through this and talking about it. And Roxy mentions the translating, a really good approach, a great idea, some of the stuff that we were talking about here just a little bit ago. But I want to go back in here. And Jeremy says, so he had given his pros and now he mentions some cons. And he says increased levels of secondary stress and vicarious trauma. Dispatchers may become visual witnesses to a crime, which could present additional legal challenges for PSAP's ECCs, as well as a need to steer away from the entry-level hiring our profession has grown accustomed to. We're going to need to have higher levels of training and mental prep for our new 911 pros. What do you think about that
Exactly.
one there?
So, I mean, everyone's made really smart and judicious call outs.
Mm-hmm.
I think a couple things that we would need to think about is, yes, there is going to be additional stress. You are going to be exposed to more, but you're going to have more impact into the outcomes. You have a better closure on what's going on. And then you're able to have a wider variety of things that you see on a daily basis, which can be both good and difficult. If we look at least the history of our space, I think in 2013, 14, 15, a lot of folks were really worried about text to 911. And that's
Yes.
going to change everything. And we're going to be inundated by text messages. And some of it's true, and everyone's mileage varies, but it wasn't as significant as a lot of people thought. And if we look at the law enforcement side, when we were bringing body cameras to market, there was a lot of concern about, oh, this, is going to add too much to the workload, or it's going to fundamentally change the way law enforcement works. And it's somewhat true. But at the end of the day, newer officers walk in and they couldn't imagine not having a body camera for their protection and then also protecting them against different allegations. So over time, there's always going to be new concepts that's going to make us or going to put us through a challenge. But this does improve the standard. And this also gives you more capability to do better and more powerful things from the PSAP. As far as rules individually with the individual for PSAPs or managers, that's really up to you to create and build your own policy. We have a lot of folks that have come from the space and can help consult and provide you best practices. But at the end of the day, it's better to have the technology and then use it when you need it, and not overuse it, because that can slow things down. But you ultimately have to make a judgment call on, is this really going to help on this particular call? And then you're able to act on it.
As you're saying all of this, there are folks in the comments that are saying, some similar things already here too, which is excellent. Everybody is talking and love this type of engagement. Let's see. Keely here says this. It's no longer going to be how hard can it be. All you do is push buttons and answer phones. Now, not that we do that now, but this is how we are perceived by years and years of that mindset. And and other people are talking about how it's going to change in the beginning through that pre-process of screening and those coming in. And I guess what do you think will be some of the things that people will need to look at even more so now? Will video to 911 is an imagery, incident related imagery is becoming more prevalent. What are some of those things people are going to have to look for now in that hiring process?
I would what I would think is more so on decision making, and not necessarily, hey, this is the information, how well do you type it in? And we look at like Critical and other things where a lot of agencies have moved to Critical, and that's a really smart way of screening applicants on, here's the information, how well do you ingest it? But you have the information, what do you do with it? And then that's going to be a bit more of a strategic change. And you're going to be at least the first decision maker on how you interpret what's truly going on the scene there. But at the end of the day, we've done a lot of deployments through our customers, and then we have existing people all the way from very seasoned to very new that are able to leverage the technology. Everyone kind of uses it differently, because some folks are more video heavy. And then a lot of agencies are saying we just need to locate the caller and figure out where they're at. And that's one of our primary issues. So you can use and leverage it however you like. It's a multi-tool in the sense for a PSAP. But I don't know, because it's still kind of an emerging technology. and there's going to be some clear changes over time. But it is important to know that this truly is the future, and this is going to be the body cameras to law enforcement, and then it's going to be difficult for us to completely understand all of the immediate implications now, but it is important for us to go ahead and start this because of impacts to responders, to the communities, and then how we're able to improve outcomes for a number of things.
For sure. Yeah, and discussions like this is what's important as well for people to get kind of on board and get their feet wet in the sense of, all of this stuff that's coming. I mean, there's, like I said, there's a lot of centers out there that are using this, and I'm guessing it'll end up being just in the same sense of text to 911, where not everybody is using it. Everyone was afraid that it was going to inundate the centers, that they were going to have to hire one person to be dedicated to just that. And then it turned out that it didn't end up being like that. And I think it was mostly because of the public education that centers were putting out there, letting people know that texting isn't supposed to replace a phone call. It's like it's your very last resort, when you can't, when voice is not enough, you're able to text as well. So I think it can be the same thing for video, where, and a lot of people in the comments here, it can be used as long as it's not used all the time. And even like you said, it might slow down some of the processes if people are just using it and using it and using it. But looking back in here in the comments too, so Jeremy says here, the most important thing now on leadership can do today, right now, and in caps, those pieces of the comment there is to begin having dialogue with their team members about the arrival of these technologies. So when the tech does eventually hit the center, team members will be warmed up, in quotes, on what's to come. To sit back and do nothing in this topic as 911 leaders isn't an option.
Yep, absolutely
I
agree.
agree.
And the more collaboration you can have with your team, the better, because that can help you write better policy and also identify leaders within the PSAP, especially people that are able to think about new concepts and ideas and implement policy. Those are fantastic people for promotion. And I did make a comment that it can kind of slow things down, which is sometimes true, but on the opposite of, you've been on those calls where it's a wild goose chase trying to locate someone. Instead of having a 20-minute call with someone that's on a hiking trail and has a broken ankle, you immediately know where they're at. And then that's able to cut down the amount of time. So we do see some bifurcation of things moving in two different directions, but on average, it doesn't massively impact the amount of time that people remain on the phone, because there's going to be times that expedites things. But it does improve the quality and the speed to dispatch, or at least improves your ability to locate people in kind of an odd place.
So I want to look over at some of the comments that I got off of social media, that because I had put something out there and I had asked people about what their thoughts were on video to 911. And so I want to go through a couple of them here. But this first one here says, I think video is inevitable and it could be very valuable in certain situations. For instance, the deaf blind communities, video is one of the main ways they can communicate. They could have the ability to have direct access to 911, where we could add in an interpreter service without the delays they experience going through a relay service. However, there will be drawbacks that we will need to be prepared for. People will abuse the system. We often express that 911 is the first responder. We were trying hard to be or to get reclassified as a protective service because we are an important part of the emergency response system. The responders on the road do not have the ability to not see these things. So this was just one of the comments that someone had put in there.
Yep, 100%. So I'm just reading through some of these comments, and there's a lot of good thought here. But at the end of the day, it's still an emerging technology, but we know from what we've seen and what we've been able to deliver on worldwide that this is it's going to change things, but it's going to provide powerful impacts. And then I think Douglas Jeremy responded, not every 911 call will require justify the need for video. And we think that's absolutely correct as well. So from the call taker's perspective, what you need to ask yourself is there something, is there missing pertinent information that I need to have to dispatch this call or make somebody safe? right? And if the answer is no, then there's your opportunity to be able to get that video out there. So primarily, it's you're trying to figure out, do I have all the pertinent information? Is this person in a particular location? Is this truly a structure fire, or is this a grease fire? Is this person having a stroke or not? And that will ultimately just boil down to the judgment of the individual call taker. But no one should ever be pressured or asked to make this the standard. Every single call needs to have video, because that's just not true. But when it's needed, it does provide a huge impact.
Right. And so one of the comments that I ended up getting, it's kind of a longer comment, but I'm gonna read it because it's an important one here. So this person ends up saying, "I have a lot of different opinions. I can certainly see how it could be useful. We take so many calls that appear to be one thing, but then once responders get on scene, we find out it's a completely different situation. I think of a call that I spent an hour and a half on a few months ago with an adult male that had Down syndrome, and he said he was out walking looking for his dog and was lost. It was winter and freezing cold, and I was so worried that we needed to find him quickly. He was telling me that he was going into houses looking for his dog, and I was panicking that he was going to walk into the wrong person's house and they were going to hurt him, thinking he was an intruder. He would go back outside, um, and then I was concerned that he was going to get hypothermia. I tried every trick in the book I could think of, asking him for house colors, did you see any cars, street signs, anything like that, telling him to reach out in front of him and tell me what he could touch, just trying to determine if he was inside or outside. We had multiple officers out looking for him. In the end, thankfully, um, he was located safe and sound. So, but throughout the incident, this person says that several times they wish they could have FaceTimed him or done something with video there at that moment. They were so, desperate and felt helpless in that moment that they couldn't see what was going on. They were just kind of wishing they had something available to be able to do that. And they go on to say, all that being said, I have the same concern that it seems like a lot of other people have as far as increased exposure to trauma, having to excuse me, visually see things instead of just hearing them. What extra liability? That's another one. What extra liability will that be on us, on dispatchers and call takers, if there was something in the room that we should have seen but didn't because we were so focused on just getting help to them? It's stressful enough sometimes just getting the basics to get help there quickly without having to scour a room to look for other details. So that's one of the things, and a few other people had that thought as well. How's that liability work? What if there's something that's missed on the video when they're focused on the caller and other things that are going on?
Gotcha. So we've heard that come up a handful of times. I think everyone's mileage is going to vary widely on what is something that's needed or pertinent to a particular court case or to prosecution or adjudication of a case. What we have seen with, at least for law enforcement, is the big concern, and especially 2015, 16, 17, is that now that these body cameras are out there, law enforcement is now going to have to testify for what's seen. But what we've also seen is law enforcement is now having to go to court less because the video speaks for itself. In addition to, here's the video of this is happening, and there doesn't really need, or I should say, people that are being prosecuted are more likely to plea out to a deal that they're caught on video doing something. So law enforcement isn't necessarily being required to testify. So it's going to vary, and I don't have a response for every single situation. But I think it's going to eventually minimize or at least mitigate some of those concerns, that it might not be quite as bad as we think, because we've been deployed in New Orleans, we've been deployed in Virginia, we also have Miami-Dade. We have a handful of major players that have these video capabilities, and we haven't seen a remarkable change in how often they're subpoenaed or litigation regarding to the decision making. But at the end of the day, as long as you're making a reasonable view, or you're making reasonable decisions, the likelihood of you getting subpoenaed or brought to court is dramatically lowered.
See, that's pretty good, because I remember being in dispatch and there was there was a time period where every single domestic call, no matter what the outcome was during that call, we were getting pulled in for it. And some of us ended up going on the stand. I was one of those. And some of those concerns were the suspects seeing us and being like, okay, you were part of this, and what if you see that person in town? Like, it was a huge thing. But this, I would say, is a pro, because they would have this video. There's no reason to bring me in or anything, just like you're saying. Now, there's a comment here, Nitin, saying, can these technologies help lower stress for call takers? Now, the couple of the agencies that you mentioned, just a moment ago, Miami-Dade as well, out in New Orleans, has there been any talk or anything about the lowering the stress levels, or maybe even some of the things that they're doing, some of the things that they're implementing there for their folks, to kind of bring down those stress levels?
So I can't, it's really hard to quantify, is someone stressed or do we lower overall stress? I think
Yeah.
what we have seen is overall job satisfaction is improving because you're able to do more and you're able to make more of an impact. These agencies are also pushing out peer support groups, and they've put together some really innovative thoughts, ideas, and actions to create a cohesive group for people to be able to talk about things. Because I mean, at least from my experience working on a 911 ambulance, and we go to, we have a night of bad shootings. I can't wake up in the morning and then eat, breakfast with my significant other and talk about people getting shot last night. That's just not going to work. And a lot of people in this industry understand that sometimes at home you can't always talk about things. So those peer support groups have been really, really helpful. But at the end of the day, being able to have better support groups internally and having people be able to talk amongst each other and recognize stress and then not stigmatize it is helpful. But having closure on your calls, increasing your impact, and at the end of the day, even if it is something that is really stressful, you should never ever feel compelled to open the video unless you're ready to see it and you think it's going to make a difference. So, like from my time in EMS, we've been through a lot of trauma. Hangings are the absolute worst thing that I dread going to. Absolutely hate it. So there's not much there. If I got a call like that, I would want to see. And then you would make, if that's your thing, that's the kind of call you should not turn the camera on for. So at the end of the day, the video is still being recorded in the system, but you as the call taker make the decision if you want to see it. So think of it that way: is the video is coming in, there's still going to be that information that's going to help you with processing those calls. But ultimately you have to protect yourself, and especially if it's going to be a bad one, to think long and hard. Is this going to give me something I don't have already? And then you're able to then figure out, or yes, this is something I'm ready to see and I know I can help, and it's not going to be a problem. But you have to trust yourself. You have to trust your instincts. And then supervisors and PSAPs also have to protect their people in saying they made the decision not to view this video. That's A-okay, and they made the right decision for themselves.
See, and that's a good thing there as well. And actually, I think Keely was the person who was saying that she was developing a policy right now. So Keely, this actually goes to you. And then once I ask this, I want to go into one of the other comments that's here as well. So in the policies that you're creating, and this, any director or anyone who is on here right now, your thoughts in the comments that you can put in. But when we're talking about these videos coming in, just like you said, Evan, you get the ability to say no, that I don't want to open this video or whichever. So for Keely or other people that are out there developing policies, are you putting in there as well, when videos come in, does it go to all of your frontline dispatchers and call takers, or do they have the ability to transfer it to maybe a supervisor or someone else instead to be able to see these? I know there was a concept that someone had talked to me about, where they had the ability, or they wanted the ability rather, to possibly send some of these videos to the officer instead, because they're ones that see this all the time. So instead of those on the front line seeing it, it would go to an officer, or they would just have the decision to be able to send it to a supervisor or send it to an officer or whichever, like that.
So in the platform, if you did have, say, an active shooter call, or you had a scene like that, a supervisor would be able to then tap into the call and then view the video, or you could send it to someone else. So that is currently available, and that's currently a best practice.
Excellent.
Another thought and idea is also sharing that video with other people that need to have access to it. So what we've seen with some of our other agencies is using that video and then sharing it with the real-time crime center, which can be adjusted through them, and then they can make specific tactical changes based on that video. But the answer is yes. So however you think it would be best used, then we can support it. We provide the video, and how you choose to ingest it is a decision that your agency would make on their own independently.
Excellent. And looking back down here at Keely's response too, she says we have the ability to transfer it with our software or shut it down and just let it store for discovery. So that's cool that they have that as well. I want to look back over here at my notes. One of these comments, some of the stuff that's in here is kind of some of the stuff that we said already, but I wanted to make sure to mention it. So the comment says, when it comes to video and public safety, I think the pros outweigh the cons, though. Being able to see the scene, regardless of the response type, holds incredible value. We rely on callers who are often in a state of emotional distress/stress to paint a picture for us about what is happening, and we all know how reliable that can be. By, by being able to actually see what is happening and then, as first responders, assess and triage the event will lead to more accurate initial dispatch responses and improve field responders' safety, in my opinion. And the person goes on to say, I know there is a concern about the consequences of our being able to now see our calls, and I have mixed feelings about that. Sometimes our imaginations can be worse than reality. Only hearing what is happening carries its own psychological impacts. While we may not have been able to see that scene with our eyes, we're creating that picture in our brains. How do first responders in the field deal with seeing an event? Without questions, video or no video, more needs to be done right now to address the mental health needs of public safety telecommunicators. And it may mean that we need to re-examine our hiring process, which is kind of, something that you mentioned as well. And then the person says specifically the psychological exam to determine fitness for the profession.
Yeah. So someone's response or their comment about the imagination, and I think that's a powerful call out. The reason being is I was watching a scary movie, and in the movie, the person was hiding in the closet, and then there were bad guys in the living room, and it just showed from their perspective that they're just sitting there listening to people in their home. And then I just remember my stress, just being a third party viewer of a movie, that was meant to have your mind is, oh, they're right there, they're about to open the door. And my mind had a lot of figments of imagination about what could or is about to happen. Whereas if I was just seeing the video in the room or from the perspective of someone that's not hiding in the closet, it wouldn't have been that scary. But being able to just see what's going on and not having your mind make up things is definitely something to think of. And it's so hard to quantify this sort of thing, other than it's something that you need to be mindful of. But we would definitely like to have the opportunity to have some deeper study in understanding how it affects people over a longer period of time with a larger sample size. But that's something that we're always looking for people to partner with us on. And if anyone has any ideas or critical feedback on that, this helps us make better software and then provide better workflow that helps people out there. So if anyone has any thoughts or ideas, please reach out to me. This is something that we were eager and ready to implement and deploy.
Excellent. Now, one thing I want to mention as we're kind of coming on the wrap up of this round, which has been an excellent round. Everyone has been so engaging, and their thoughts on this, pros, cons, concepts, just all of it, and especially having you on here, Evan, to talk about this as well. This has been an excellent round. I want to mention there's a white paper out there right now from Dr. Michelle Lilly, and I'm going to put the link in here so that you all can check this out as well. And so let me add this in here really quick. And I got her permission to be to put this on there. And I mean, it's there available for anyone anyway. But I just wanted to make sure to talk to her about it because I'm going to try to get her on. either a roundtable or an episode or something like that to be able to talk about this as well. But the white paper is on how NG911 technology may positively impact mental health in 911. And it says evidence from research and theory on PTSD. So there's definitely one to look at. I just want to read just a short paragraph here, and then all of you can go in and check out the rest of it as well. And please do make sure to check it out. It's an excellent white paper, but just looking at this first paragraph on potential positive impacts of NG911. So it says, given the information provided, a reader may conclude that NG911 will have a net negative impact on the 911 workforce. Yet, making this conclusion is premature and fails to consider the potential for salutary impacts resulting from access to live video. The potential for positive impact follows directly from theory and replicated empirical findings on PTSD. So, specifically, access to live video may have a net positive impact, given that it may, and there's 5 specific points here, again, that everyone can go to. And so, 1, reduce feelings of helplessness and increase a sense of agency. 2, reduce guilt and self blame. 3, provide visual contact, which has a documented positive impact on stress. And then 4, provide information on event severity. And then 5, provide information on call outcomes. So definitely one to check out there, and more information. And Jeremy has added one here as well, incident related imagery. So make sure to check that out too, because there's a lot of different places that you can find more information on not just video to 911, but the impacts of NG911 on dispatchers and call takers today, and the positive impacts that come with it. So going back to you, Evan, here, what are your for those who are watching right now, whether it be just now live or on the playback, those who might be on the fence when it comes to video to 911 or any other NG911 technology as it pertains to, like the mental health and wellness of 911 dispatchers and call takers, those who are on the fence, like, what do you say to them? What's some advice or some of the things for them to look at when they're trying to weigh these pros and cons of bringing this new technology into their ECCs?
Sure. I would say try it for yourself. So start with the trial, try it and implement it with people that you feel are ready for it and want to take it on. And then do your research, because it's going to vary widely depending on the people and your particular agency. But I firmly believe it is going to be helpful. It's going to help provide some closure on those calls, which the PSAP and the PSAP community misses out on. So just try it, and ask your people what they think, and then I think you'll start to get your answers. To speak to the other point regarding mental health, the exposure to trauma is already there. They're still on the call, and you're going to have people that are going to be exposed to a lot of bad things on a regular basis. That's still there, and it will always be there for the foreseeable future. One thing I can at least say with my agency that I've worked with is mental health is a huge part of at least addressing or giving you opportunities and resources to address mental health care. And you have to have a culture of openness and the ability to have people connect to the right resources. So, for example, like we opened up to a peer support group that opens up to fire, police, EMS, and I don't think dispatchers were necessarily included, but they should be. Mm-hmm. But if your agencies, your counties, your cities already have connections to these agencies with peer support groups, it would make a lot of sense for you to offer those services or become a peer support leader within those areas to have that conversation that you might not be able to have with your family or someone else that you trust, and you have someone else that's in the business, in the industry. But mental health and then addressing mental health is both a clinical and a cultural thing that starts at the individual agency. And either way, trauma is going to be an integral part of our business, but responding to it can vary widely on how you should do it. But just want to put those ideas and resources out there that police, fire, EMS, a lot of times will have those peer support programs. And if your PSAP isn't already a part of that, you should get them in there because it's meant to be open and have more people that are able to help and assist those that are in the ecosystem, and people will just get it. So I'm not sure that's what worked at your former agency, but I've made that call before after a bad one, and it's helped a lot. And I'm glad that service was there, and I completely and wholeheartedly advocate for it.
Perfect. Thank you, man, so much for being on this round 29 of the Dispatchers Roundtable. This has been an excellent conversation. Again, we had tons of people in here talking and just really engaged. This has been really good for those who are watching and want to find out more about you, what you do for Carbine or Carbine themselves. How can they find out more information?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, and then my email is evanm@carbine.com, and it's CARBYNE. So if you just email me any thoughts, ideas, critical feedback, or something that our engineers or customer success team can work on, we definitely want that feedback. And we already take the feedback that we get frequently, but we could always use more because at the end of the day, we want to help more people and make better software. So if there's anything that you can do to help us, please let us know. We definitely envy and covet your feedback.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for being on, and I'll be right back here with you. I know you have to leave here in just a moment, so I'll be right back here with you. And for those who are watching and listening, thank you all so very much for joining us for round 29 of the Dispatchers Roundtable. This broadcast has been sponsored by InDigital, Rapid Deploy, as well as Carbine, and this was an exclusive Carbine DRT episode. Shout out to patrons as always. Thank you all very much. This can be seen on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, as well as Twitter. And then for patrons only, you get an audio version of the DRT as well. So make sure to check that out. Just really quick, I just want to give a shout out to the two dispatchers that were working the incident yesterday in Uvalde, Texas. We're here for you if any of you need anything. Those who are watching as well, the Nocturnal Dispatchers page has put out an address and everything there for cards and so many other things, so make sure to check them out. But I just wanted to say that we're thinking about all of you during this tragic time with what happened yesterday. So thank you for everything that you do. If any of you need anything, please reach out, and we are here for all of you. If you have any comments, questions, also, or you want to be a guest on the flagship show, you can email us, and that'll be WTT podcast@gmail.com. And then for those who are watching for the flagship show, you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. Thank you again for an amazing round, the engagement, all of it. And we will see you in the next round. Have a good one.